command. I don't think he had to command us to populate the earth. It just, as human nature, we just would. So he didn't have to command it. But our diet, he knew that it would be a source of problems in the future. So he commands it. It's the same word as the 10 Commandments. And we know that the 10 Commandments are not optional. We know that they are actually mandated. If we want to be saved, we have a part in our own salvation. Salvation's a free gift, but once we gain salvation, now God doesn't leave us where we are, but now we have a responsibility to move forward. So go to 3:1 now. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, has God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden. So what's subtle mean? What does that mean? Subtle. What is it? Cunning. Yes. Cunning. It is trickery. It's scheming. It is almost imperceptible. Subtle is so imperceptible that we probably, if we're not really paying attention, we're going to miss it. And I think all Christians miss this. The far majority do miss it. So we're told in 3:1, there's two parts to verse 3. I mean in 3:1, there's two parts in 3:1. And the first part says, hello, red light flashing. I'm warning you right now that Satan is the most subtle of the beasts. Be careful, warning, stay away, danger. And then in the same verse, we are told what the lie is. What is he subtle about? And it tells us right there in the same verse that didn't God say that you could eat of every tree of the garden? I asked this yesterday. Did God say that? He did say that. It's half truth and half lie. Because yes, God did say that, but God also said in 17, but of the tree of knowledge of good and the evil, thou shalt not eat of it. For in the days that you do, that you shall surely die. So we're told you can eat of all these trees as much as you want, just don't eat of that one in the midst. These are representatives of actually the good and evil of our own day today. Everything is either represented under the things that he has given us permission, or it falls under the headline of what he does not give us permission, and that's that one tree. And we're going to go over some of those things. So we're told what he's subtle about in the same verse that we're told that to be warning about. And then it goes on into, and the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the tree of the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, you shall surely not die. So God says, if you eat of this forbidden tree, you will die. Satan says, you can eat of any tree that you want, and you will not die. And here we are as God's people eating whatever we want without really understanding the health message or our duty before a holy God, and we are presumed to be saved. We are in presumption. We presume that God will continue to save us in our sins. And much of the Christian world still believes this lie. You can eat whatever you want, and you will not die. That's exactly what Satan says, right? But God says, if you do eat of it, you will die. And did Adam and Eve die? They did die. But we had a loving Savior. At the moment of sin, he got right in there, and he said to the Father, let the sin fall upon me, and let's give man a second chance. And yet, most of the Christian world still believes that we can eat whatever we want, and we will still live. But that's not what God says. And then, so we can see, then if we read in 3:11, and he said, who told thee that thou was naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree that I commanded thee that thou shalt not eat? So here he's using the word command a second time. And then the third time it's used is in 17. And God, unto Adam, he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it, cursed is the ground for thy sake, in sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. You see the pattern here? So in 1:11, God says, I'm going to create this food. In 12, he creates it. In 1:29, he says, this is your diet. And just in case you missed it, I'm going to say it again, except this time in 2:16 and 17, I'm going to say I command it. Just in case you missed it in 1:29, I'm going to repeat it, and I'm really going to make a point. And then in 3:1, I'm telling you that Satan is the most subtle of all the beasts, and I'm telling you what he is going to be subtle about, and that is diet. It's the only command that God has given us to that point. And then he says, if you eat of this, you will die. But Satan says, you can eat of any of it and you will not die. And then in 11, God says, really? I gave you 1:29 and told you what your diet is. I then commanded your diet in 2:16 and 17. In 3:1, I'm telling you to watch out for the subtleness of Satan. I'm telling you what he's going to lie to you about and be subtle about. And then did you really go against what I said? I just commanded you. It's the only place that I commanded you to do something or not. He's like, really? So the third time in 17, did you really disobey? And then because you disobeyed the only command that I gave you, cursed is the ground. The ground is cursed because of that disobedience through diet. This is big. How often do we really think about this? Not very often. So we see, what is the diet here? The diet is high fruit diet. It's a fruitarian diet. It's basically fruits and greens and nuts and seeds. And if there were any grains, nothing was cooked. So everything was fresh. And then if we go to Revelation 22:2, it says, in the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river, was there the tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruits, and yielded her fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. So here we have again now that it shows that our diet in heaven is going to be a fruitarian diet again. From Genesis to Revelation, that has never changed. A high fruit diet has never changed. God has tweaked it a few places here and there, but as far as the fruit goes, that has never changed. Because the next diet that was given was after sin, vegetables were added, and after the flood, clean animals were added. And then we've got all these tests of diet that we talked about yesterday, all throughout the Bible. There's all sorts of diet tests throughout the Bible. And we showed that we still have that same test today. So if the Bible is a timeline from the beginning of time to the end of time, and we are right here at the point of the end of history as we know it, and we look at the Nebuchadnezzar statue, and we see that the toenails are just about ready to be clipped. We're living right at that end time. We talked about what our diet should be yesterday, post 1844, the antitypical Day of Atonement at the end of the 2300-day prophecy. We see that that Daniel was an end-time prophetic book with an end-time prophetic message for an end-time prophetic people, and it starts out with a test of diet. And then in chapter 4, it moves on into diet again. We see that in Revelation 3, we have another test of diet when Jesus wants to come sup with us. And so we have this picture from Genesis to Revelation of a high fruit diet. And yet, it is probably the one food group that if anybody gives up a food group willingly, it's fruit. People will even give up fruit before they give up vegetables. And they certainly will give up fruit before they ever give up their meat, or their dairy, or their sugar. Fruit's always got to go, because it's got too much sugar. But let's see what the Bible in the Spirit of Prophecy has to say. These are the composition components that are a part of fruit. These are components that are found only in plant foods. We must have these components if we want good health. We must. Because we are a world, I won't even say nation, we are a world that doesn't eat enough fruit. We don't get these properties in our diet, and therefore we're a world that is filled with chronic disease. We must have these. So these are very special components of fruit. So we have phytochemicals and antioxidants, bioflavonoids, vitamins, minerals, fiber. There's no cholesterol, no saturated fat. It's low in sodium and fat and calories compared to other food groups except vegetables. Vegetables have lower calories than fruit, but otherwise fruit is the number one. It's high in simple carbohydrates. And did you know that it's simple carbohydrates that our body actually needs in order to run efficiently? But yet, the world food industry has told us that to eat a Twinkie is just the same, or some kind of candy is just the same as eating an apple. And somewhere along the line, we've believed the lie. You see, Satan's very subtle, because white sugar is a single glucose molecule, and it's a simple sugar, as the same as fruit, also a single sugar. So, and because the food industry, we're told, don't eat the fruit because it's got too much sugar. But there is a big difference. One sugar is not the same as a sugar. Protein's not a protein, a carb's not a carb, and a fat's not a fat. What do I mean by that? It means that a fat that comes from an animal, such as saturated fat, is not the same as the fat that comes from nuts and avocados and seeds and olives. It's not the same thing. The world wants us to believe it's the same thing. The food industry wants us to believe it's the same thing, but they are not the same at all. the protein that comes from animal products is not the same protein that comes from plant foods. And plant foods don't even have protein. They have amino acids. A protein is like a woman's pearl necklace. That's a protein, where every pearl is representative of an amino acid. And then the string that puts them all together to make them a necklace is then what makes it a protein. Why it takes so long in order for protein to break down in our body, because I just said a little bit ago that generally it takes about 24 hours for a plant-based meal to leave, where it takes generally about 3 days for animal products. That's because our body has to actually break down every single one of those bonds. Our body doesn't want, nor does it like, to have protein, that pearl necklace. It wants amino acids because it has to take all the time in order to break down all of those bonds, so that each pearl then is an individual amino acid. Our body wants the amino acid so we don't already break it down. And that's one of the reasons that it also causes so much disease. A carbohydrate is not a carbohydrate. So a Twinkie or a candy is not the same as fruit. The world wants us to believe a protein's a protein, a carb's a carb, and a fat's a fat. But that is not true at all. So we can also, and all fruit has amino acids, and this is something that is fairly new understanding. There was a book that came out about, I don't know, probably 40, 50 years ago. It's called Diet for New America, I think. And what that book talked about is protein combining. That if you have beans, you have to have another food that has different amino acids. So beans are high in 30, 40 years ago, they used to teach that beans were very high in some amino acids, but had no amino acids of other kinds. But then grains were high in where beans were low, and grains were low where beans were high. So you had to combine them, which was called protein combining. But we now know, as of maybe the last 5 years, every single plant, and I'm going to be even more specific, every single fruit has every single amino acid. We now know that. Yes, some fruit is higher in some amino acids and lower in some, where some others might be higher, where it's lower in that other fruit, and it may be lower where the other one is higher. So they all have all amino acids. It's just where is the mark where it is. And did you know that fruit is so healthy? It is the only food group that people for a time can actually thrive and be healthy with only fruit alone, nothing else in their diet. They're under certain circumstances, there are certain people who actually can and are living on an all-fruit diet. You have to live in a place like Kenya or Hawaii, where you can and grow your own food. These are the people who are successfully living on an all-fruit diet, where they have their own orchards. They can pick fruit from the trees and eat them at that moment, instead of being shipped thousands and thousands of miles away. We can actually survive. For the rest of us who don't have that advantage of having all these wonderful trees in our backyard, there's greens, because we will miss a few amino acids and a few nutrients, which if we are on an all fruit diet, but we can, if we add greens and a few nuts and seeds for the fat that we need, we actually can live very healthfully without any issues at all. Those are the only requirements that our body actually needs. Our body needs fruit, it needs greens, and it needs just a few nuts and seeds. We don't need grains, we don't need beans. There is nothing that's in grains or beans that is not in fruits and vegetables in their raw state. With just, and we do need fat, but we don't need very much. As we continue to go on, I'm going to show you what the food guide pyramid looks like according to the Bible and the spirit of prophecy. Fruit eliminates toxins at a cellular level, unlike any other food group. Meat certainly can't do that. Dairy certainly can't do that. There's no other food group that can do what fruit does. And yet, so many places that I've been around the world, if there's one food that people will give up, it's always fruit, because of all the issues that we're going to talk about here in just a minute. So we can eat fruit in abundance and not have to worry about weight gain. I want to warn you now, I used to have research up here. I'm a researcher. I know what the research says. But you'll notice I show no research anymore, because we have become people of the research. We're no longer people of the Word. We don't even know what the Word says anymore. We don't even know what our own health message is. We just listen to all these worldly people who talk about health, and we just follow. We follow along. Oh, am I supposed to take a teaspoon of baking soda every single day for good health? Or I'm supposed to take a couple tablespoons